Welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about things that are weighing on our minds. I am Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and I am planning my first vacation to Jurassic World after the pandemic ends.
What do you plan on doing there? And are you bringing like defensive armor?
I mean,
they say it's safe now.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yes, no one ever dies on Jurassic World property.
Yeah.
My name is Michael. I am a chaser, and I am planning on having a helicopter on standby for right after Trevor goes to Jurassic World. I don't have the connections yet, but hopefully by the time the vacation happens.
My name's Don Marshall. I'm a big chubby guy in Hollywood, California, and I'm looking forward to my vacation to Westworld.
Oh boy.
I'm Dan Oliverio. I'm a chubby chaser, author, public speaker, and Trevor's husband. So I'll be going with him to Jurassic World. Yipes. And I plan on packing a sandwich.
Raptors like PB&J, so just have one on standby to throw the other direction.
I will be their best friend.
Anyway,
welcome to the new Jurassic Park Fancast.
Everything's out the window now. We just talk about Jurassic Park.
I mean, I did just watch Jurassic Park as well, so I'm revved up. I'm ready to go.
Isn't there a new one being released any day? Or
they're filming.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're one of the, I think, the biggest films that is filming during quarantine, that is following all these new procedures that were released and developed by the big wigs in Hollywood. Yeah. The guys with cigars.
The size of the mask that must go on a dinosaur. Oh, can't believe it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, no, dinosaurs are immune. That's one of the perks. That's why they've been able to get away with doing, filming.
Yeah, but remember when the dinosaur sneezed on that little girl? That could happen.
But obese dinosaurs have a higher risk of catching.
Yes. But yeah, that's a perfect point to dive on in.
Let's get to Perry Mason.
Yes.
Oh man.
So I'm just mentioning this. I'm giving it a shout out because I've seen many chubs and chasers alike kind of give a shout out to Perry Mason. Yeah. But so there is the new gritty reboot of Perry Mason on HBO. And in the first episode, there is a very nude, very chubby character who is supposed to be basically the guy we talked about. Michael, you know the one.
I think what Trevor's trying to say is that in the Perry Mason episode, there is a comedy duo that is one is fat and one is thin. It's not really Oliver Hardy. It's supposed to be whatever Oliver Hardy would be in a fictional universe called Perry Mason.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay.
And Perry Mason is hired by the studio to basically, they're suspecting that he's in breach of his morals clause. So basically he goes and sees him having sex with a young starlet and photographs him. And then, and he chases after Perry Mason, very nude, very endowed.
Down the street.
It's like the first 10 minutes of the show. Give it a watch.
It's marvelous, I must say, Michael.
Yes.
This is episode 1?
Yes.
I don't know if
and it's in the first 20 minutes. It's the first 10 minutes. This is how the show opens.
Welcome to the show.
I see a screen grab.
Yeah.
And I see what you're talking about.
There you go.
Come on, I'm trying to load the larger version of it.
I bet you are.
It was just a thumbnail.
I think we need to leave in the silence of Michael eagerly anticipating the image loading.
That's Michael's first taste of what downloading porn was like in the 90s.
Because you had to wait line by line.
Just load.
Line by line by line.
Now, what I want to know is, like, did they have a fluffer on set to, like, help the guy out? Or is that him, like...
Well, I think that's just him.
There? I was pleased to see him.
Wow. Okay. Good for you, my good sir.
The actor doesn't seem to have a lot of credits. And I think, like, I wonder if they're like, okay, this character has to be fat and very well endowed. Like, I bet, I can see that was like part of it, because it's like.
You think that was the casting breakdown?
Yes.
And it's not I'm not looking at the video, but it's not a prosthetic.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
It's not uncommon to use prosthetic for full frontal nudity, especially over a period of time. But
next, you're going to tell me that Superman doesn't even really fly.
What? Don, don't ruin the illusion, okay?
Superman uses a prosthetic.
I thought they had to use a something for the Brandon Routh Superman to
supposedly they had to
copies.
digitally remove his penis. Yeah.
Forget the Snyder cut. Give us the penis cut of Superman Returns.
Apparently he was so well endowed that like the red underwear could not contain
it.
Yeah.
That's the Superman movie I want.
I mean, now hold on a second, because Tobey Maguire is famously one of the most well-endowed men in Hollywood, but I don't think they had to digitally remove anything for Spider-Man.
Wasn't it mostly CGI?
No, he's really
he
that
wears
endowed.
the suit. Like he wears. Oh, well, yes, that too.
We need to get trending. Hashtag release the penis cut of Spider-Man Return.
People are going to think you
Cut
got
the
that
penis.
backwards. Yeah.
release the uncut penis.
Yes.
Edit.
Hashtag Superman Returns uncut. Or cut, maybe. Speaking of penises.
and tucking them.
Yes. Speaking of hiding penises, I'm sure, I don't know, maybe our listeners have, maybe they haven't, been watching RuPaul's Drag Race Canada. I don't watch any RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm not afraid to admit I am one of there's dozens of us who don't. But there's a member of the pit crew.
Yeah, a listener sent this in actually. In Kenna's Drag Race, Mina, I believe his name is Mina Gurgis, was a part of the pit crew in RuPaul's Drag Race Canada. He is an Egyptian model, and the big story is that, I mean, I don't know, I would go so like he's not like very very fat, but he's definitely like a plus size model, and I think it was just. I mean, Dan said it best. I think that the story here is that it's actually a story and not just okay, there's a guy.
The news is that it's news. And why he's hitting the news is because he is the first pit crew person without abs.
Right.
That's the news.
Don and I were discussing while we were waiting everyone to join the Zoom call. It's like the Victoria's Secret models that are plus size, but they just look like you scaled up a regular Victoria's Secret model by like 50%, because they're also like 6 feet tall. You know, they're these Amazon angels.
Yeah. These are the people that you made in Skyrim when you were trying to make a fat character and they wouldn't.
Yes.
Right. And that's as far as the game would let you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which not to say that it's not a good thing, but I think
it's
we're all
I just
sitting
find it
here
funny,
like okay.
Well, I feel like it's a step in the right direction, because up until then, there have been two body types on that show: gymnast and bodybuilder. That's it. You know, so to have a third body type is at least some diversity in hiring.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, there are a couple famous examples of fat stars on RuPaul's Drag Race, but I think specifically for the pit crew.
Yeah, talking pit crew. As far as actual contestants go, I think they've done a really good job in representation of multiple sizes.
Yeah, pretty good. But that was a nice little like we were saying, like it's something, right? Isn't that our
that's the first merch.
It's
something.
Eventually, one day we'll be able to print T-shirts. But yes, so thank you, Drag Race Canada. Now I don't know if normal Drag Race has done this yet. Probably not.
They have not.
So I don't think we have a mailbag, right? We haven't actually dug back and looked for one.
No.
But do we have a Lizzo watch for today?
Of course we have a Lizzo watch. It's Lizzo watch 2020. God, it's still 2020.
It's still 2020. Hey, but it's more than half over now.
God.
Oh God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
I forgot to see the hatch mark on the wall.
I'm just broken. I'm broken.
It's Trevor's breakdown.
Trevor just loses it live on the show.
No,
all right, the music's going.
The Lizzo watch. Well, we're still locked in this perpetual hell. Lizzo has signed a deal with Amazon to basically, they are going to produce a Lizzo thing, whatever she decides it's going to be. They gave her a first look deal for like it will maybe be a movie. Maybe it'll be a TV show. Maybe it'll be about Lizzo. Maybe Lizzo will star in it. Maybe she'll just produce and direct. Maybe it'll be our show on Amazon, produced by Lizzo.
If we can, let's start a writing campaign now to get Lizzo's attention. She'll watch the show, and then she'll call her show Lizzo Watch, and we'll be guests on her show.
Yes.
Genius.
So much like
we need your help, listeners.
So when they're I'm trying to think, if there was a show that was gonna be canceled or was canceled, and the fans sent in nuts because like we're nuts for whatever show. They've done this with like drumsticks, various items. So we need you all to contact the company we mentioned in a previous episode and buy a giant inflatable ass.
Send them to Amazon.
And send it to Amazon with
we want Amazon ass deep in ass.
Yeah, we're ass deep in the Big Fat Gay Podcast.
Wow.
Oh man.
If we put out an episode title that, our listenership might double. I'm just saying.
That's what happens when I put out.
Oh boy. Ass deep in the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Okay.
Hashtag ass deep.
Did we just lose our family rating?
Yes.
Did we ever have one? I've been rating these explicit ever since I stopped bleeping the episodes like 4 or 5 in.
Yeah. I think that's wise.
No one's got the time to bleep our
nobody's
dirty,
got the
filthy
time.
mouth.
And I was just eventually I just was getting paranoid that I would, late at night I would be editing and I would miss one and people would just go back and be like, hey, why did you not get that? It's like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it anymore. You guys have foul mouths and I just have to accept it.
Ass.
So what else is Lizzo up to?
So this, I was unsure if I wanted to include it or not, because this is actually like a little controversial. I don't know. Or it's as controversial as it gets with like Lizzo and
we don't get controversial.
So Lizzo was posting about, she has her vegan recipes and everything, but she is now doing raw vegan, which is basically you eat vegetables,
that's it.
Which
or unrehydrated pea powder.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. So Trevor, what is the story here?
The story is just that she was sharing this video of talking about doing the raw food diet, and I mean she's getting all of the meals basically from a service because it's like, she's rich and it's untenable to prepare endless amounts of raw food, especially when you're not getting protein. Maybe
I would just like to point out the irony of preparing uncooked food.
Yes,
I know. I was just thinking that. Like, so what? I guess they're just
chopping. A lot of chopping.
The example dish she was sharing, she was having some while she was doing the video, was like a beaten apple salad. So shredded beets and apple. It was like kind of a slaw.
Oh, beets and apple. I thought you said a beaten apple salad.
No.
Isn't that technically like tomato sauce with lettuce in it?
Abused apple salad.
That's flogged pear.
Yes.
That sounds like a sexual position to me.
The flogged pear.
Yeah. The flogged
Come on back to my place. I got a craving for them.
I'll beat your apple.
But I thought it was controversial because it's like any diet. Even veganism, it's like, I get it's more of a moral thing, but I feel like the more and more specific your diet gets, it just basically becomes disordered eating.
So my question is because when we talk about diet, we have kind of two different meanings. We have diet as just a general reference for your overall
food. But the food you're eating versus
and then there's diet as in dieting in order to lose weight, which a lot of people, that's what a diet is. So do you know which is her goal?
It was mainly just she was trying the altering her food intake to only raw foods, not with no intent of losing weight, but just as
what she wants to eat.
Yes,
because that would be so much fun.
I've done that in the past, just out of curiosity. Like I did the master cleanse thing for like 2 weeks. Not because I wanted to lose weight, but because I was curious if I had the willpower to do it.
That's why I took up beating my head against a wall. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Did you have the willpower?
I made it 10 days.
Jesus.
Oh, Lord.
But actually, it did no benefits to me whatsoever. It's just.
Yeah, but they were lasting.
Oh yeah, they really did.
What came after the cleanse? Like, what's the opposite of a cleanse?
Or Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I went to a acupuncturist many years ago in New York, and she suggested that I eat no raw foods. Like that was just one of those things. She was like, after examining your chi energy, blah 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 blah, no raw foods for you, only cooked. I'm like, okay.
All right.
I don't know what to do with that.
That's right. If you insist.
I've been meaning to unpack the deep fryer.
Yeah. I can't have any apples, only apple pie.
So maybe it's time we move on to our main subject. For
yes.
Today.
Yeah. So this is going to be, I mean, can somebody else set this up? Because I'm still kind of like trying to wrap my brain around it. This will be a mixed
bag episode for you folks. What we're tackling today is the topic of the COVID virus in relationship to fat, right?
And obesity.
And obesity.
Oh,
and there is so much mixed information out there, sometimes even from the same sources, that I feel like if you're fat and you're existing during this quarantine time, you don't know if something's gunning for you or not. Like, it's just confusing. So Dan has done a deep dive into a lot of this information for us. And
I have. Well, as have we all.
Yeah.
As have we all.
As have we all. But it's Dan remembers the facts better than I do.
I quickly want to, I put this in a different version of the outline, but I wanted to kind of unpack briefly the controversy around the word obesity, especially within the fat activism community.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, oh, like, do we not use obesity? Should I give like a content warning, a trigger warning? Because I do see that a lot in posts. I even thought of that after last week because we were talking about the situation in the UK. But basically, since we're talking about it within the context of medicalization,
medical terms.
The medical industry oppressing fat people with this idea of obesity, which part of what inspired this deep dive was last week there was an article about Canada creating new guidelines about obesity and it not being defined by weight.
Not defined by BMI solely.
Yes.
Right. But there's a lot. Well, yes. Keep going. There's a lot else there.
Yeah.
In that article alone.
I mean, I think I'll hand it to Dan.
Okay.
Here.
Oh Lord. Okay. Yeah. So take us away because that article is like a total mixed bag.
So let me just briefly outline that because it's a little wacky. So on the one hand, the headline is that an organization in Canada suggests that obesity, quote unquote, and we say quote unquote because obesity is the medicalization of fat as opposed to like a bodybuilder is obese by medical standards, but they don't mean that. So it's a very loaded, It's a very loaded term. So that's just the obesity thing. So that in Canada, this organization suggests redefining obesity, not just based on BMI, not just based on, what's your height and weight. And that they want to look at other markers. And so you think, okay, that's good. So we kind of decouple the stigmatizing and useless statistic called BMI from actual medical care. And then the other half of the article goes on to talk about how diets don't work. That's good because, they tend not to have lasting experience. And there's a lot of studies to back that up. And then, and then the final part is like, but everybody should eat right, exercise, and lose weight.
Well, and it still talks about this is the part that was confusing for me. And I still was trying to like pull it apart in my head because they're keeping the term obesity. And they're saying obesity should be defined by a person's health, not just their weight. So they're trying to pull obesity apart from purely being about weight. But everyone in the world knows obesity as a direct reference to weight, and that's it. Like, so what this article is trying to say is that obesity as a term should be used to define a disease that is defined partially by a person's health and not just their weight. But everyone knows it and understands it to be simply a description of how fat somebody is. And so it's hard to pull that apart. Right. And I think when you go into the article with that understanding, it's a little easier to understand, but it's almost like, can we just find a new term then? Because
there is a new term. Well, it's been around for a while. It's called metabolic syndrome, which is a collection of health risks, which being fat is not necessarily part of, but is often associated with. So it's a way of pulling that apart. It's a way of pulling apart fatness from a medical problem. and it's called metabolic syndrome.
Right.
It's characterized by type 2 diabetes and, a number of things, and not necessarily all of them together, but type 2 diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, things like that, that not all fat people have.
But, to their credit, at the bottom of the article, they have in quotes, diets don't work. So from the woman who helped co-write the piece, Ms. Ximena Ramos Salas, says that Director of Research and Policy at the Obesity Canada.
Yeah, and last time I was in Canada, I was at an eating disorders conference, and so there were a lot of dietitians, and I was really impressed by the cutting edge quality of Canadian dietetics, which is to de-emphasize weight loss and to de-emphasize dieting, to talk about health instead and things like that. I was kind of blown away by how just like common that idea was in the room, that we didn't have to fight upstream. The question really in the room was, how do we get everybody else this news?
Yeah.
Yeah. The one line in this article that really threw me, it was like an emotional roller coaster in a single line. It's toward the bottom. It says, but instead of simply advising patients to, quote, eat less, move more, unquote, the guideline encourages doctors to provide supports along the lines of psychological therapy, medication, and bariatric surgery, like gastric bypass surgery. I'm just like, whoa. There's so many different things to unpack here.
Yeah. I mean, that really characterizes the article in one sentence. I think thank you, Mike.
A hug, a kiss, and a shotgun blast to the face.
You'll be just fine now.
So this was our way of tiptoeing delicately, gently into how obesity relates to COVID-19. And how much just mixed messaging and misinformation. And at the very least, and I feel like this is one of the hardest things to get across to people because this doesn't make headlines, but it's like things are uncertain and unproven, and there are no concrete determining answers here, but people are acting, and the CDC is acting under the, I guess, assumption that these are concrete. Yeah. Anyway, we can get into all that.
To the layperson, if you're diving onto the internet right now and you're looking up whether or not obesity is a risk factor for COVID, sort of like the first skim you come across just says yes, right? Like all of like the top level articles that you can find all blame being fat on getting COVID.
From the CDC if you're in America.
Or the Prime Minister of England.
Well, I feel like it's, March we're saying like yes, and then May was like, oh no, actually not. And then yes, we're at yes again. But then if you scratch a little deeper below the surface, what I was finding is like none of the research that they're showing right up front says fat equals vulnerable to COVID. What they're saying is like asthma is contributing to COVID, or, a heart condition is contributing to COVID, or any of these other things that may contribute to people gaining weight. Right.
Yeah. So anything that compromises your immune system, a lot of these things are commonly associated with obesity. But
so it seems to me that, like, just again, as a layperson, when I'm reading these articles, it sounds to me like the CDC is doing what all doctors fucking do to me when I walk into the office and just assume that I'm going to have high blood pressure, diabetes, and all this stuff that I've never had in my life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're painting all fat people with a brush of the comorbidities that may come with weight gain.
Yes.
So
that was frustrating. May be, not caused by the weight gain, but just maybe pre-existing and could be exacerbated by.
Just contributing towards.
Yes.
So there's a few different things to unpack, and let's just go in order with the CNN article first, which talks about how the obesity, quote in quotes, the obesity epidemic could undermine the effectiveness of a vaccine. And this is kind of setting up like the problem which I think the next article from health.com kind of addresses with a lot of different quotes and resources. But basically the idea that a COVID vaccine is less effective in obese patients because most vaccines are less effective in obese patients because the way it was described here is essentially the vaccine uses an inflammatory response to be spread throughout the body, and I guess that response works differently in obese people.
Correct.
And so that's why the vaccine doesn't work the same and doesn't always work at all.
But they also don't include, the article describes how they don't include obese people in medical trials.
Right.
And the COVID vaccine is the first, I think one of the first examples where they're including people with higher BMIs, but also not specifically looking for how does this affect the people in the trial with higher BMIs.
Well, I think that's also because for the first time, we're actually looking at of making a vaccine as effective as quickly as possible, as opposed to usual clinical trials, which are getting a vaccine approved for sale as quickly as possible. If you want to include it for sale as quickly as possible, you want to try it out on the least risky group of individuals and have great statistics on how it cured them all.
Right. Yeah, that's a fair point.
But also, the medical industry has a long history of just excluding all outliers. Like women weren't included in most drug trials.
Sure.
Freaking half the population, because they were just thought of as men with extra hormones, medically speaking.
Right.
So why throw in those extra hormones into your testing mix when it's just going to throw off your data? Like,
that's exactly right.
Makes sense.
That's exactly right. Because again, the job of the drug company who does the trials, because you literally have it's a case of the policeman policing the police. The point of those trials is to get the drug approved.
Yeah.
That's that's why you're doing it, because you're the company providing the money for the trial.
So when we look at another statistic that's commonly thrown around, which was actually in our article from last week about the Prime Minister of the UK saying the highest percentage of people in the hospital with chronic conditions related to COVID-19 are the morbidly obese. Is the fact that those percentages are always exactly in line with the general population's percentage of how many morbidly obese people are versus so if your population has 9% morbidly obese people, and then you look at the people in the hospital with COVID-19 complications and say, well, there's 9% morbidly obese people versus the 3 or 4% of everybody else spread across an entire spectrum. And you say, well, it's higher there. Well, it's higher everywhere. Yeah. Like it's the same. You're getting the same pool of people, but they're sort of cherry picking that one statistic without actually showing the context for it.
Yeah, I mean, to be more rigorous about it, they looked at the number of people being admitted with serious conditions, and then having to be put on ventilators and things like that. And for one thing, they saw a lot more men, which was interesting. But yeah, it tended to track along the same lines as obesity in that population. So where it was a case of if it went up 10 points, it went up 10 points here in the population too. So it did track it, yes.
And I feel like because I have heard people reference that before, and that it just feels like if you're going to use that as a bullet point for why this is more supposedly more dangerous for obese people, like you have to include the fact that that's not different from the existing population. I feel like that's a really important piece of information that's not being included.
Well, and the other side of that's absolutely true. And the other side of that is that most of these studies also do not correct for what we know to be the single greatest predictors, or the two greatest predictors of health in a population, which is in America, race, and the other is poverty. And
exactly,
we can completely predict who's going to have the health problems if you just look at race and poverty. So when you say, but not considering that, look at all the fat people, it's a bit disingenuous.
Well, yeah. And I think that speaks a lot more to how we tend to treat people of certain races or socioeconomic factors. That's what is it in Chicago? 60% of the people dying from COVID-19 are African American, which is wildly out of proportion from the population, which is 30%. Or 68%. Sorry, I'm looking at the health.com article. Versus they account for 30% of the population. So it's wildly disproportionate. I mean, we're looking at correlation here, but it still feels like it's because people are being treated a certain way, as opposed to, oh, okay, well, if you're black, you must, and it must be because of that factor,
right?
That you're dying. No, it's because you're being treated differently, and you have access to different levels of healthcare.
Access is different, yeah. Access is very different, and attitudes towards doctors are different. Even within families.
Yeah, and so part of so bringing that up is there are so many factors like this, social factors, that aren't being taken into account when people are breaking down studies and statistics. They're not accounting for the fact that people in lower socioeconomic communities tend to have higher rates of obesity too. So it's now skewing the numbers one way when you're not accounting for where they're coming from. And the fact that those people have access to less effective healthcare. And another interesting part of this to me also was the idea that, if you are fat in a society that shames and is prejudiced against fat people, you are emotionally and psychologically a lot less willing to put yourself through that shame to go see a doctor and ask for help. If every time you've walked into a doctor's office, they've, like Don was saying earlier in the show, like they've given you judgment after judgment and made you feel a certain way without actually treating your problems that you're trying to present to them, you're a lot less likely to seek out help until you have a much more serious version of the disease than other people are, because it went on longer.
Well, and look at the corollary
without being
of that.
treated.
Look at the corollary of that. If you tell fat people that they are more at risk, they are less likely to go to the hospital emergency room when they start feeling symptoms. What are they going to do? They're going to isolate. They're going to isolate further because they want to make sure they don't get it, which also means they're going to wait longer, which means they're going to have a longer incubation period, which means they're going to probably show up sicker if they do show up.
And on the other side, if you tell a bunch of doctors that fat people are more at risk and they have to start prioritizing who they treat, they're probably like, didn't this happen in New York? And maybe my memory is a little fuzzy.
They talked about it happening.
Basically in New York, they were talking about not admitting obese people to the hospital because they had a lower, like they were more likely to die anyway.
Automatically turning down fat people because why bother?
When it wasn't
you're probably going to die anyway. So
it wasn't just fat people. It was assessing people's quality of life. And so people with disabilities, elderly people, that they were approaching this level they never thought they would. And they were saying, if it gets any worse, we may have to do X, Y, Z.
Well, and to be clear, this wasn't a plan in the works. It never actually happened. It was simply the natural next thought of, wow, what if we do start running out of beds? And someone said, well, I guess we'll have to prioritize patients for those beds. That's as far as it got.
Yeah.
Luckily.
Right.
But, it's in the air.
Well, it has gone a little farther, but this is a little off topic, but a friend of mine has a extremely disabled son and has been told point blank, if the son gets COVID and goes into the hospital, if there's any conflict for a hospital bed, his son will be bumped off the list entirely. So it's like, it's already out there. Decisions have been made. They're just not necessarily talking about it. And I don't know.
No, that could well be. I was talking about the particular thing in New York, but it's out there. You're right.
And I think the one thing that we have seen over and over again in America, at least, is that there is no defining leadership. There's no role that everybody is following, or there's no example that everybody's scattering in every direction, trying to make their own decisions as best they can. And it's going a half dozen different ways.
Well, and also we live in a country where they've been pushing really hard for anyone's personal opinions to allow them to deny service to anyone they feel like, right? Like my God says being fat is bad, so I don't have to treat you. Well, there's been no legal precedent for that, but it's already been established for gay people. So why not?
Another thing that I thought was very interesting, which I had not heard before, was, again, this is from the health.com article, the idea that there were studies that were done that show that being higher weight could actually protect you against some of the complications from COVID-19, specifically ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. And it's still a correlation. It goes the same way, where you can't really prove it one way or the other. But the correlation was basically people with respiratory issues when you were obese actually had a higher chance of surviving them.
Right.
Still correlation, but it's interesting that that's not being talked about. Like that, at least I'm not hearing anyone reference this. And I feel like it just skews the whole conversation towards this one narrative that everybody's in agreement with, which is that if you're obese, you're going to die.
Well, I think they're afraid maybe that if they tell people that fat people have a better health outcome with ARDS, that somebody out there is going to say, oh my God, I've got to get fatter so I'm protected from my respiratory distress of ARDS. Because there are people out there who are, drinking bleach and whatever, trying to stay off the ARDS. So, why not? Maybe I should.
Oh God. You know what? I was rolling my eyes until you brought up the bleach thing.
Let Darwinism take its toll. That's what I say. Jeez.
Yeah, if someone's
Christ.
reaching for the bleach, think twice about us stopping them. That's
People listening just spit out their bleach.
Wait, what?
Wait, should I not have been drinking this just now? Or
Or the articles on how like maybe sanitizer isn't a cure. Just, what does science say?
How do you inject sunlight? I'm confused. Anyway,
people were
There are toys for that, Don.
you
hold on your
ingest
pants and
you ingest sunlight through the best way is through your anus,
oh God, that's
and
right.
you're supposed to kind of like
Anal
point
tanning.
your butt up in the air and spread your butt cheeks.
for
It
how
was
long? though?
God, it was Thanos. Thanos burned his butthole
Yes.
doing that.
How long do you have to be in that position before you get the appropriate amount of sunlight?
It was short. It was like 30 seconds, they said.
No.
What?
It was short.
30 seconds isn't
You
long
don't
enough to get
burn
anything
your
done.
anus in 30 seconds.
Oh, I don't think I have a
Not
feeling there are a lot
properly.
of people out there that are like 30 seconds is good, then like half an hour must be great.
Mhm.
It depends on whether or not you've bleached your anus.
Oh God. A fun fact. So I, for the longest time,
Speaking of
thought
anus
when
bleaching.
the position of spreading your ass apart to expose your anus was spread eagle.
No, baby.
Someone was telling a story and like, oh yeah, I walked in and I found him spread eagle
like,
on the
oh.
floor, and I was like, oh my God.
Oh, Trevor, no.
So like each butt cheek is a wing.
Yeah, and it's spread. The anus is an eagle.
For the record, no, I did not tell him that for sexual advantage.
Dan.
And I think of it anytime I hear spread eagle now.
Oh, Lord. So the end result of this was, as far as I understand it, was meant to be that basically it's all correlation, and like a lot of conclusions that are being drawn are based on correlation and not causation.
Well, which
and
is
even
often
if
the
it is
case.
causation, which is often the case, and even if a scientist believes that, like, there's so many other factors that cause obesity in the first place that it's impossible to draw it back to whether or not, let's say, the fact that somebody was poor, didn't have access to certain things, and like where it's, you have to draw it back to where it actually comes from too, which isn't being done. So the point was, there's a lot of question marks, but it's not being talked about in that way, at least not in America. It's being talked about like you hear from the CDC, like obesity is a factor that will make you die from COVID-19. So I think it's important to just put that in the right light and the right context for people, because that's not really happening.
Yeah. Well, and I think also just like, I mean, I know I have been, anytime this kind of springs up in the news and it's in the cycle for a couple days, it just makes me so anxious. But then I just need to realize that like there's, the best way to prevent your risk of COVID is to stay home, keep your distance, wear a mask, just everything that like, I mean, I have still been doing, Dan has been doing, Michael has been doing, Don has been doing, take precautions, don't have a party, I don't know,
Just be
wear a
sensible
mask, wear the mask.
Wear
Where the
Wear the mask.
goddamn mask?
Wear two masks. I mean,
Yeah.
guess what? I've worn two masks before, and you can still breathe. So, like if you can wear two masks and breathe, you can definitely wear one mask and breathe.
I will say this because Trevor and I have had a long conversation about masks because they don't fit you. Do they, Trevor? Are you just ordering?
No,
like,
it's I found
2X, 3X masks?
a 3XL mask on Etsy that I think will be better than the masks I have, just because
you really can't breathe in those tiny normal size masks.
yes.
Yeah.
And I have really bad allergy. I have allergy induced asthma, so it's just I can breathe. It's not great. It's unpleasant, and my solution is I wear a mask when I'm out, but I've just been going out less because I'm not going to be that person who like rips off my mask and picks a fight with someone at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I mean,
I did
don't-
not rip off my mask.
Don almost did that.
I did not rip off my mask.
Well, I would be the bad person.
Do you care to share the experience, or should we gloss over that one?
I'll share it if people want to hear it.
Yes. Tell it.
All right. So I was at Ralph's. I was in the checkout line wearing my mask with all the other good people. And there's some dickwad at the front of the store, not wearing a mask, screaming at the manager about how he's infringing on his civil rights. Like this is bull crap. It's not real.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been watching these people on the news and I've been so angry at them for so long, but I've never seen one in real life. So I saw one in real life. I'm like, oh, I can unleash the rage. And I just started shouting at them, right? I don't remember specifically what I said. I know something like waste of human biomatter. And if you want to kill yourself, we're fine with that, but I'm buying broccoli here. It's just, and it was like someone had just like pulled a plug out of the dam. Because suddenly everyone in that line just started screaming at him, except for the guy directly behind me, who turned out to be a pro-Trumper, who started shouting, he's right. He's absolutely right. It's infringing on our civil rights. Only 1% of people are going to die. They're lying to you. But I turned around. I'm like, God. Do you know how many people 1% is? And I become completely incoherent. And just, again, like, guy at the front of the store forgotten, because now I have an object of hatred 6 feet from me, right? So I don't even remember the things coming out of my mouth. He's shouting at me like fat ass communist, blah, 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 blah. And like, I'm responding to the communism part, which seems to confuse him. I'm like, what the fuck do you think a communist is? So he starts to take a step towards me, like lifting his hands up. Like he wasn't going to punch me, but he was going to start shoving. And at that point, like, I've never been in a fist fight in my life, but at that moment, I'm like, I will take a punch for this cause. I am fine with this. And like, my brain goes into full Sherlock mode, right? The world's slowing down. I'm like, his hand's going to touch me on the right shoulder. If I pivot and put the hand, like, I will bring him down into the candy aisle, and then I can put him down on the floor. And according to the news, it's okay for me to kneel on his neck. So yeah, there we go.
Right. And just stay there for 20 minutes.
Right. But instead, I don't know. I this was not a conscious choice. I just remember my finger coming up between the two of us and saying to him, 6 fucking feet. And he backed up, at which point an incredibly bored looking security guard came up and stood between us.
Hashtag 6 fucking feet.
Yeah. This poor woman had been doing this all day, I think, because she did not look impressed.
Oh,
yeah.
But, oh my God.
So like I was so full of adrenaline for like 12 hours after that, but I felt so good afterwards. Like I need to go shout at anti-maskers.
Yes.
Actually, I've decided to stop calling them anti-maskers. I'm going to start calling them pro-COVIDs.
Pro-COVID.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because I'm being more positive.
Point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I need to be more positive in my life. So they're going to be pro-COVID.
Pro-COVID.
Yeah,
say yes to life.
Anyway, my tangent.
So, Trevor, do we have a tip for today?
Yes, we have a tip, a fun tip.
Yo,
life is great. Quarantine
life
is great.
good. Forget about quarantine.
So I have been in search of a chair for a long time, and this is where Don was wondering about this. So this is not an office chair. This is just in our bedroom. We have a little vanity where I do all of my, my face lotioning and vitamin case filling and all sorts of stuff. And sometimes, when I'm doing my full body moisturizing, I will sit in that and listen to podcasts while I'm doing that. But our previous chair, which was that one of the ones that was made by your uncle, was it? Or was it repaired by him at some point?
Oh, it was, I'm sure, repaired by my uncle at some point. My uncle was a cabinet maker, furniture maker, so it was a very handy thing to have in the family.
Anyway, rest in peace, that chair. There was a point where I
imagine how nice it was to have that in the
family. I sat down and then I was just like on my back on the ground, and this is probably like the second or third time where like a chair is broken and I don't understand what's happening. Anyway,
he's never moved that fast in his life.
Yeah. Well, no, I was just like, I don't know. It was a strange feeling just being on the ground all of a sudden, which I've been looking to replace the chair since then. I've been hunting on Amazon and other places, but I found something on Amazon and it's nothing fancy. It is just a sturdy chair. It comes in black and red.
It's a stainless steel frame, right?
Yes. It is the Flash Furniture Hercules series.
Hercules.
Rated for up to 1,000 pounds.
How many pounds?
1,000 pounds.
Oh, there you go.
And you can actually get a pack of them. So you can get 1, 2, or 4. The one is $50. I think you get a slight price.
But
dude, these are very affordable.
Yeah,
they are. But I would point out, as Trevor said at the beginning, they're not roly office chairs.
No.
But Trevor, don't you use it at your desk now?
Yes, because so I have an office chair that supports me and is big enough for my butt where it's not a problem. But I have the issue of, my belly and all this front meat sticks out quite a bit in front of me. So if I'm trying to get close to my desk and if I'm working at my desk, like if I bump into the desk, the chair goes back
because it's on
wheels.
The
so
office chair.
I like to.
You need locking casters.
Yes.
or that thing they use when you're climbing mountains that hooks you to the ledge.
Yes.
Crampons.
Pitons.
Pitons. Yes, it needs pitons.
Maybe some sort of strap system to hook myself to the desk if I.
There's a climbing place near me. I wonder if they have office climbing gear.
Yes.
Or put your chair on like a bungee system where it just rolls you back again.
Yes. Bouncing all around.
I was going to say the oscillation die down eventually.
And these chairs, the Hercules ones, stack.
Oh, really?
They're designed to stack. I think it's you can stack up to 12. And then I don't know what happens after you stack 12. I don't know if they reset and compress back into one chair. You have been warned not to stack them over 12. I don't.
Well, when you see the size of them, a 12-foot stack
Hercules.
would be Herculean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hercules, not Sisyphus.
Yeah.
There you go.
Back to zero.
The cushion is nice.
I thought it was clever. Never mind.
Keep it in the podcast. It'll be good.
Someone out there will agree with you, Michael.
The cushion is nice. The only drawback, which
yes.
The reviews are all positive, but there are these like little bits of the frame that kind of stick out that will dig into your thighs if you got big thighs like me. But in both situations, like when it's in my office, I put this little quilt I have on it. And then when I've had it in the bedroom, I have this decorative towel that I put on it. And that solves the problem of the little metal bits.
Nice.
Okay.
But yeah, check it out. We'll put it on the website. I will actually put the links on the website this week because I didn't do that last week.
Attaboy.
And I'll go back and put those there. People don't. I did actually once have someone be like, "Where's the links?" The first time I was like, "No one checks this. I'm not doing this."
No, people do. People do.
I know they do. Tell us if you do.
When you said that, I was picturing the "Where's the beef" lady like pulling up to your bedroom window. Where's the links?
God damn it, there was supposed to be a link.
She is so dead.
Oh no!
Never.
I mean, she is.
Clara.
She lives on forever in her Wendy's commercials.
In our hearts and dreams.
Because that beef never digests.
Well, now that we've got all taken a
on that
seat,
note,
Don, do you have a bit? Where's the bit?
Do. Since we were talking about Canadian healthcare today, I thought I would bring a new bit in called Blame Canada. Blame Canada. So we've got some fat and Canada facts here.
No.
So
Okay.
we've got multiple choice. That's the way we're going now. So are you ready?
Yes.
All right.
yes.
Famous fat actor John Candy, Canadian, had a massive career that spanned the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where he starred in incredibly successful movies. You probably know them. In 1984, he starred in Splash, the hit movie that made his career in the U.S. as a leading man. What role did he turn down when he made that movie? A, a Chinese gangster boss in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. B, from Ghostbusters, the role of Louis Tully, made famous by Rick Moranis. C, villainous floating Baron Harkonnen from the David Lynch adaptation of Dune. Or D, Beverly Hills Cop as young detective Billy Rosewood, the role that made Judge Reinhold famous.
I'm going to say the Ghostbusters one because I feel like I read that.
Yeah. That's who he pals around with. That's what I'm going to go with too. That was the second one, right, Don?
That's the second one. Okay, we got 3 for Ghostbusters.
I think so.
And the correct answer is Ghostbusters.
Yay!
He actually turned down the role because he didn't really get how he could make it funny. Like he wanted to play it German with like a bunch of dogs.
Oh dear.
And it was sort of an amicable parting ways. But as a side of the trivia bit, he did in fact end up in a form of Ghostbusters. when he had a small role in the Ghostbusters music video, uncredited.
Okay,
Wow.
that's
Wow.
random.
Like he was literally passing by.
All right. Question 2. Canada is one of the fattest countries in the world. What has been claimed to be a major factor in this fact? A, cheap sugars in their food provided by the Canadian Maple Syrup Reserve. B, NAFTA. C, immigration from the United States. Or D, the increasing quality of Canadian television.
I'm going to go with NAFTA. It's got to be NAFTA.
Got a NAFTA?
That's what I'm going with.
All right.
Not the real reason, but the said reason. You know.
I want it. I want it to be because Americans are immigrating there, so that's what
I'm going to say NAFTA too, because I would say the Maple Syrup Reserve, but I know that they're actually like, there's a whole thing with them in maple
dangerously
syrup.
low.
So,
Well, okay, so we've got 2 for NAFTA, 1 for immigrants, and the correct answer is NAFTA.
Yeah.
They've been blaming NAFTA for basically flooding the Canadian market with cheap sugar additives.
I believe the word you're casting about for is crap.
Yeah. So there you go.
Oh, boy.
Question 3. Justin Trudeau may be the best known Canadian politician in the US, but Rob Ford is likely a close second. The former mayor of Toronto grew famous for smoking crack on video and denying it for months before admitting he was, in fact, did use it that one time.
That one time.
Which of the following things did he not also become famous for?
Oh boy.
All right. Which of these 4 things did he not do? A, walking face first into a camera at a city hall in front of a swarm of reporters. B, winning an arm wrestling match against wrestler Hulk Hogan. C, claimed he never said he wanted to eat a certain woman's pussy because I'd never do that. I'm happily married. I've got more than enough to eat at home. Or D, claimed it wasn't crack, it was meth when he was caught on camera smoking crack a second time.
I want to say,
which one of those 4 things did he not do?
You know, I thought I had it
think
until you
D.
mentioned the last one. Yeah, I thought I had it until you mentioned that last one. I bet he didn't do that.
I think D.
D?
But
I want to say walking into a camera.
Oh,
Okay.
He totally did that.
All right. We've got 1 for walking into a camera and 2 for it wasn't crack, it was meth when he was caught on camera smoking crack a second time. The correct answer of the things he did not do was, in fact, D. It wasn't crack.
Okay.
But however, he was caught on camera smoking crack a second time. He just never made the
Oh my
disclaimer
God.
about it being meth.
That makes sense.
Oh my God.
All right. This is my favorite one for obvious reasons that will become clear soon. Our final question. Canada's most famous culinary contribution to the world is the dish poutine, which consists of French fries covered in gravy and half-melted cheese curds. While it's never really caught on in the United States, it did have a surge of popularity in the 70s in New York and New Jersey, where it was known as what? A, Canada Crunchies. B, Disco Fries. C, Moose Potatoes. Or D, Mountie Munch.
I really like the names you've come up with here.
I mean, I've heard of disco fries, but that just might be fries.
I've heard of disco fries too, but now I don't know if it's actually a reference
It's
to that.
possible that all of these are, in fact, potato dishes. It's possible. I'm not saying it is.
I think disco fries is I think it's disco fries because I know disco fries are like group fries with a topping, and I feel like it maybe started out as a riff on poutine.
I'm saying disco fries because that's the only one that I know is an actual thing.
I believe the other things are things given Don's excitement.
He's just a potato mad fool.
I love me some good potatoes. Dan, what are you feeling?
I think
Got
I'm gonna
2
go
for
with-
disco fries.
I think I hate to just go with the flow, but it's good. I think it's disco fries.
Okay, we've got 3 going with disco fries. The correct answer is, in fact, yes, disco fries.
Yay.
They
But
earned that name because they were a popular treat at nightclubs and late night diners across the city where people would go after dancing.
but
There is no There is no and. I made up the other three.
I was hoping you were going to say the other three.
I knew it. He looked like the cat who ate the canary because he made up those terms and he was proud of it.
I was very proud. I'm very proud of Mountie Munch.
Mountie Munch. That sounds like something completely different.
It kind of does.
It does.
I've seen some Mountie pictures where I'd be interested in finding out what a Mountie Munch is.
Going spread eagle on that Mountie Munch.
There's eagle spread that comes as a topping.
No gravy and cheese curds if we're doing that. Just
wait, is going spread eagle on a Mountie the American like joining the Canadian like eagle and the moose?
I don't know, but it'll bring our two countries closer together. That's for sure.
Or open a portal to hell.
All
right, Trevor, bring us home before this goes off.
Well, what a time we've had, but it's time to go. So, what do you do? What do you do when you go? You check us out on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram at what are we as? Oh my god, at Big Fat Gay Pod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us a 5-star review there. Our website is www.bigfatgaypod.com. Is it that or is it big? Oh my god, I always get this wrong.
Yes,
Big Fat Gay Pod.
Yep. Leave us a 5-star review.
Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. On Facebook, can you do that on Stitcher? I don't know. Who's listening on Stitcher? Let us know.
at least one person.
Yay.
They better.
Although weirdly, our episodes go up a day late on Stitcher, and I don't know why. Yeah, it takes 24 hours for them to go live there.
Must be the time zone.
I have no idea.
They're scanning them for explicit material.
Well, that's what's happening.
Too late.
If you're listening in the car, there's someone spread eagle behind you.
And he wants to share some Mountie Munch. Look out.
Look out.